Chris, what's up, my friend? Good to talk with you again. It's been a little while.
Yeah, Ryan, it's good to be back with you, buddy. How are you?
I'm really good. Life is good. I told you before we hit record, we moved up here to Maine almost a couple of years ago, and that's been an interesting roller coaster, but all good. But yeah, things are really good, man. I appreciate you asking about
Yeah,
that.
no, glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's been a kind of a crazy year. I mean, you asked how I was doing, and it's been good for us, but I know for a lot of people, it's been pretty
Mm.
wild, pretty unstable. I know a lot of people are struggling and hurting, and so I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I think at the root of everything, finances tends to be a pretty big issue around a lot of people suffering, quite frankly. And I think there's a lot of things that people can do to get their finances dialed in.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, this year has been an absolute doozy. I mean, and as far as it's changed the way that we hang out with friends, it's changed the way that we connect with family and the way we go to church, the way we grocery shop. I mean, it has caused a lot of change. But you're right. In looking at this, I think, it's that mindset of even in the midst of change, we can grow. And I think, financially, I think this situation has caused a lot of people to wake up and
Mm.
really look at their financial situation totally different. I think, if anything, we talk about an emergency fund here at Ramsey Solutions. There's been no period of time where we've had greater validation in the need of having money set aside ready to help you if and when life happens. And life has happened in 2020. And Ryan, you're right. Money impacts every phase of our lives. And so it's important for us to have a plan.
Yeah, it's interesting because as this COVID thing came along, one of the things that I made a conscious effort about was actually taking money out of my savings account because I'm a firm believer in what you guys do. So I had the
Hmm.
money set aside. We're all good there. We've got other investments and we've done the baby steps and all of that stuff. And we actually took money out and I put it in my safe. I'm like, I just want to have cash on hand. I want to have it
Hmm.
here. And without some of the steps that you've taught people, and it's a very systematic, simplified way to approach your finances. That's the thing that I think is hard for people is with a financial planning background, it's so mysterious to people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so they paint it as some sort of like grandiose thing that they can't understand. And you guys have done such a phenomenal job at saying, no, no, no. It doesn't need to be a mystery. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yes.
Just do that and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and you know what? And even despite having the recipe and the plan to be able to follow, you still have people who are reluctant to do it. And there's really three reasons for that: guilt, shame, and cynicism. And
Mm.
the guilt stands in the way because they feel guilt of what they've done, and then they have shame of what they haven't done and their position, and then the cynicism is the actual doubt that this thing will actually be able to help them. And so, really trying to work through those to help people go, no, no, no. It doesn't matter your income level. You can follow this recipe. And so that's what, I beat the drum of. And then, Ryan, I realize my own limitations. I can't make people do it, right?
Right.
I wish I could. I've got family members that don't follow the plan, but they'll call me and ask me questions, right? And I go, I've answered that for you like 3 or 4 times. You need to do some change, right? But it is a matter of trying to appeal to people that, hey, let's get that boot off your throat. And I think we are so used to being stressed out about money, or because we don't understand it doubting that it can actually be fixed, that we're hesitant and reluctant.
Yeah, it's interesting you talked about family members and you've shared this stuff with them. Do you think it's just that people are looking for an easier answer? Like, why wouldn't they just take this stuff and run? It's like, for me, I think, all right, look, maybe I'm not as dialed in with my finances as I want. I know things need to change. I know a lot of guys are experiencing that. To me, I'm like, all right, this guy seems to know what he's doing. Like, I'm going to give it a shot, and see if it works. But I think so many people are so stuck in their ways
Yes.
that it's like, I'm not even going to try it, or I'm going to ask you 3 or 4 times in hopes that you give me a different answer that's maybe a little bit easier than what you gave me
Yeah.
before.
Right. Well, and I think it is a lot of that. And I think people have to get to that never again moment. And I call it the uncle spot, right? I grew up with 5 older uncles. And so, they were all various athletes. 2 of them were into judo and another 2 were into wrestling. So I was the judo dummy and the wrestling dummy for many years of my life. And then around age 12, my body started to change.
Yes.
And so I was able to hold my own with these men that were older than me. But it's getting at that point where my uncles used to get my arm behind my back. They'd say uncle.
Say
and I'm
uncle.
like, I'm not doing it. I ain't doing it. And then finally you say uncle. I think a lot of people financially have to get to that point, unfortunately, where they say, I'm tired of this money stuff, not only causing me stress and affecting my sleep, but now it's impacting my relationships. And I don't think people understand that stress will impact how you're relating with your spouse. And unfortunately, that money stress will also impact how well you connect with your kids. Mom and dad don't feel like playing as much because they got collectors calling or they have bills that are due. And so really seeing that thread, and I've seen it up close and personal. So I'm trying to help people kind of work their way through it. But I think we also have this mentality, you and I are close to the same age, this I dream a genie. Right? Like people just want to blink and have stuff just get fixed. And that's on TV. That's not in reality. We actually have to work. We have to sacrifice. And we got to want something big enough and better enough that we're willing to change what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I wish it wasn't the case. I wish, look, I'm no different. I wish we didn't have to hit rock bottom for this to wake us up. You talk about you've seen it up close and personal. I think if I remember correctly, you started your career in the quote unquote industry as a debt collector. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was doing consumer finance. So we were doing personal loans at the beginning of the month, personal loans and mortgages, high interest rate. And then at the end of the month, I got the opportunity to have to go collect. And so that was eye-opening for me. That's where I got my PhD in economics, to be honest with you.
How so? Explain that. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, you look at on the screen and you see this account, like people were pumped up to come in to get the money, right? And so,
Sure.
you feel like you're helping people. And, I look back at some of the interest rates at 18, 19, 20% on a personal loan. I mean, that's legalized loan sharking is what it was. But doing that. And so then at the end of the month, you're calling to get a payment. And, sometimes going out and meeting with people I got a PhD in understanding the account number on the screen was an individual. It was a family, and the dollar amount that was owed and was behind. These are family. These are people that have kids. They've got jobs that they've lost. They've got illnesses, and sitting down and talking to them, it just gave me this whole different side of this isn't just about numbers on paper. These are people's lives. Right. And so really being able to empathize and work with people and to guide them, I realized that I was quickly going to be leaving that industry just because I knew I had to do things to help people, not put them further behind.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point because I think a lot of the times we're led to believe that, finances is just money, right? And or finances is just math, I should say.
Right.
But what's interesting about that is that if that were truly the case, if that's all that it was, we'd all be independently wealthy because we all know 2 + 2 = 4.
Yes.
So there's this other dynamic of human interest and emotion and all of this like human stuff that goes into this world of finance and money that tends to at times, frankly, muddy and cloudy the process and in
really
a way
does.
become our own worst enemy.
Yeah, well, and you with your financial background, all the terms and stuff you learned, as a financial planner and in this industry, and it can feel almost like this exclusive club, right? We're throwing around debt and debt to income ratio and compound interest and all this stuff. And so one of the things I try to do, and we do here at Ramsey Solutions, is to talk, number one, with people and to people, not at them. Meaning we're not trying to use the vernacular. We're not trying to use the fancy word. We want to be able to take that concept and be able to boil it down so people can get it, right? And it's like this concept of budgeting. Like typically you say budget, people break out into hives and start twitching, right? They see it as this handcuffs and I can't do stuff. And I go, no. Budgeting is simply you understanding your income, what's coming in, and understanding what your expenses are, the fixed and the variable. And so what we're going to do is tell money where to go instead of wondering where it went. So
Right.
What I'm going to do is give you more control over your money. And when you have more control, you feel like you got a raise. And so it's just people seeing it that way. And then they go, oh, and I love Ryan. For me, on stage, or as I used to, as I traveled, we're not traveling anymore right now,
Sure.
but I used to at the events, I'd love it as I was talking. I could literally see the light bulbs go off for people, that they were starting to see something differently than how they saw it before. And to me, that's a win.
Yeah, it's I sat in an interesting spot because I represented a lot of these financial firms. I worked with investment companies, I worked with insurance companies, and but I also worked with my clients, and I felt like I sat as this liaison between what my clients needed and wanted and what the financial industry, the insurance companies, investment companies I was representing wanted.
Right.
And I became very jaded with the process. It seemed to me that the industry at large, just generally speaking, wanted to confuse people in a way. And you know, you saw it in the way that you would go into financial advisors' offices, and quite literally they would have this big, beautiful leather chair, and it would be slightly higher than the toned down version of their clients' chairs. And it's like, I'm sitting above you.
Yeah.
And that's what the industry seemed like. And I became very jaded with that process because people were hurting, they were struggling, they were confused. And frankly, it was in the industry's best interest to keep them confused, because confused people are more easily manipulated.
Right.
They're more easily controlled, and we can extract more dollars from these individuals.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, you're right. There's a lot of unscrupulous people out there. But and so I always encourage people to get somebody with the heart of a teacher. That's one of the things I tell them, whether they're working with somebody for their investments, they're working with somebody with their taxes or insurance. And someone with the heart of a teacher is someone that's truly trying to help you. Like, they're not just trying to sell you some stuff. And so, I mean, that spirit is something you can easily feel on people and sense it. But when you're building a team and you're getting people around you, it just makes it so much easier to reach out with questions. Like, I just reached out to my tax guy just a couple of weeks ago. And then I reached out to my insurance guy 3 months prior to that. And it was a matter of just firing off a couple of emails or making some phone calls. And so when you got people in your corner, I know when I call them, I can trust what they're telling me. And that makes a big difference.
I like that you're talking about in the concept of building a team. Like, the way that I look at it, and maybe you see it a little differently, maybe you see it the same, is that I, as the head of my household, the leader of what we're doing here and in my business and my community, I'm the coach. All right. So I see the grand vision. And then I bring players onto the field that are going to help me accomplish what I need to accomplish. Specifically from the perspective of finances, I bring in an accountant, I bring in an investment advisor, I bring in my insurance agent. They're all part of the team. They are not the team. They are a component of the team with me as the coach of the team.
That's exactly right. I've used the analogy similar to that, where I'm the team owner. Right. And so I'll bring in some other coaches to help me with this, to achieve that. And so you're absolutely right. But the team thing is important, just because, I see family, as a team, and you want to work with someone that understands your goals, that you can get real with. I connect with my investment professional a couple times a year just to get updated. They know the goals for the buckets of money that they're in charge of. And so I talk about it that way, and I go, okay, well, this is what this is doing, and this is what I need to make sure we're on track. Are we good? And they'll let me know some little tweaks that can be made to make big differences. So all in all, I'm trying to break down barriers, right? Barriers that are standing in the way of people making progress. And I talk about that on my show, the Chris Hogan Show. I tell them I'm focused and not finished. That's my tagline. And all I'm saying is I'm focused on what I want, and I'm not finished trying to go after it. And that's that daily focus and effort and intentionality, but also sacrifice. And so, helping people understand that formula is crucial.
I had a guy reach out to me the other day, and I'm paraphrasing here, but his question was, or his scenario was, that he was having his wife manage the finances, the budget, the things like that, because she was good at it and he wasn't. And he said, am I relinquishing some of my sovereignty, some of my power? And I told the guy, I said, no, not at all. Like, you're bringing the right people into the right positions
Mm-hmm.
in order to get the job done. Like, you don't have to feel threatened, or your masculinity doesn't have to be under the lens because you're having somebody else do something that they're good at. But I
Right,
think there's a
right.
lot of guys who feel like if they give any sort of this stuff away, that somehow like they're relinquishing their control, or they're not doing what they should be doing. Have you experienced that?
I have, and I had a guy who was extremely egotistical about it, to be honest. And I was able to share with him one story that began to give him a whole different perspective. And the story was, I had coached a couple and he was good at it. She didn't like it. She was scared of it, but she agreed to have a budget meeting. They communicated about it and had a general plan. But he was the person that executed the plan. Well, he was in a car accident and ended up in the ICU for almost 45 days. He had actually held on to life and made it through, but he had rehab, had a lot to do. He had to learn to walk again. And communicate again. And so in that time, I remember her coming in with this box of stuff because she knew of it, but she didn't know how to do it. And so I told this gentleman who had the ego, I said, listen to me. I said, you don't want to be that family. And I said, so the best instance is to cross-train, meaning you understand what's going on with the kids because his wife was a stay-at-home mom. You need to know what's going on with the kids and how to be integrated into that. And your wife needs to know how to step in and do the bill pay. I said, that way, this cross-training, what you do is you end up protecting the family. Because if one piece goes down or gets ill or, God forbid, something else, you don't cripple the family. And I said, no one would intentionally do that. And so that really resonated with him. And so it was one of those, this cross-training thing, they really took it to the extreme, meaning they would rotate every 30 days, bill pay, right?
Wow.
They would do it together. And then they had the bad love. He loved to pay online. She liked checks. Like that was one of their battles. I'm like, guys, let's not, really.
That seems like a lot of work.
Here? Yeah, I said, let's not split atoms here. As long as the daggone bill gets paid, that's what matters. But yeah, I think that idea of cross-training each other, it just helps the family be stronger.
I'm going to have to think about that a little bit in my own personal situation because, frankly, the way that I've done it is I'm good at this stuff. I like this stuff. It's fascinating to me. I've got a background in it. So
Right.
I've told my wife, hey, look, I think this is one step better than not having the conversation. But now that you say this, I'm like, maybe I need to do a better job at this. But I've told her, I'm like, hey, look, if I die or I get an injury or I become incapacitated, call these people.
Right.
Here's just call these people. I trust them. They're going to help you with this stuff.
Yes.
But I might need to do a little bit more thorough job than just that.
Well, and not only, here's the thing. The next time you meet up with them or do a Zoom call, have her join it, right? And I got to see this firsthand. A good friend of mine was tragically killed in a car accident. And it was one of those, it just broke everyone's heart. They had stuff in place, insurance and all the stuff. But the beauty of it was you got to see the wife reach out to the insurance person. And so because she had been involved, it wasn't a first time to meet in this hard situation. It was the continuation of the relationship. They had met before. And so during this hard time for her, she wasn't connecting with a stranger. She was connecting with an associate. And so I would say just have them involved in the meeting. That way they get a chance to get on a first name basis. And it just, again, you're strengthening the family all the way around.
How do you suggest getting a wife on board with these types of conversations who just is not even remotely interested in having any of this conversation?
One answer, a one-word answer, kids.
Okay.
If you have kids, for the sake of the kids' future, it's imperative that we do this together. It is imperative because, like you said, you told your wife, God forbid something happens to me, you're going to be taken care of. But it's one of those things, God forbid something happens to her, you want to make sure you're taken care of. And so it's oftentimes the thing that will unite couples more than anything else. It typically starts with kids. And then eventually what I want them to understand is kids grow up and leave like they're supposed to, right? So you need to make sure you guys have some dreams together too.
Yeah, that's good. So this might sound maybe off a little bit, but basically what you're saying is find her, I don't know, pressure point,
her motivation.
Motivation. Okay, that's a better way to say it.
Motivation,
Sure.
point of concern, dream. I think it's kind of all weaved in there because we all have all three. Like we all do. I don't care how big or how strong or how tough you are. We all have those things that we're worried about. And typically, as a parent, you want your child to be okay, right? So that means you want to make sure that ducks are in a row, right? I've never met a parent or a grandparent that doesn't want better for their kid than what they had growing up. It's never happened.
Of course.
So how is that going to happen? Yeah, you got to do better, right? You got to work together and do better as much as possible.
I think what you're talking about here, and the term I've used in the past is framing, right? Like, look, you're a marketer, right? You've got these backgrounds, but you also market what you're doing because it's important and you want to put it out in the world. And
Yeah.
I think obviously with your energy and your level of enthusiasm, you understand this and you framed these conversations in a way that will be meaningful to the people that you're trying to serve, your wife and your children included.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think, you start to tap into that, the family, the stuff you're trying to accomplish. And I think that's the thing that I'm trying to help people tap into the most. Like, what is it that you're dreaming about? Like, what's the thing that you say, if money wasn't an issue, I'd love to be doing X, Y, or Z. And so putting yourself on a plan to be able to work through this process, the recipe to put yourself through the baby steps that are going to give you the opportunity to earn the right to do more of what you want to do. And so it's just mindset. It's tapping in. I mean, you and I both know motivation is crucial. And internal motivation is absolutely incredible because that means you wake up and you know what your vision is of what it is you're trying to accomplish. And I love being around people like that because nobody gets to stand in their way. Right. Like COVID. COVID might be a setback, but they just set up for a comeback. Right. These people think differently. And so that's an important process as you're dealing with money, that you're connected to your dream, but you're rooted in your plan.
It's funny when you talk about this COVID thing is, the comeback. And I thought about 2020 and frankly, it's been the best year that I've ever had, and it's weird because in a way, I think sometimes we have a tendency of maybe feeling a little bit guilty about that because I know people are really struggling.
Right.
But also, I've looked for the opportunities and I've positioned myself career-wise, financially, to be able to be okay. And I've heard you talk about 2021 as being a year of opportunity. And I would love for you to riff on that because I think a lot of people are only seeing the dark clouds. They're not seeing the silver lining.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, congratulations on this year going well for you. Here's one thing I know for sure. I watched the NBA Finals in the bubble. I watched the Super Bowl. I watched the team win. When they held up that trophy, they didn't apologize.
Right.
They held that up because they won and they celebrated. So I know this year has been tough for a lot of people, but I think if we think through and go back and look, as I've done and really reflected, there's been some losses in this year, and as far as some money and events, some things that you couldn't do, but I've also gained a lot, and I've gained a lot in as far as perspective. Understanding I've had, more time with my kids and more time to see things differently and clarify. But as much as people want to blink and make 2020 go away just for 2021 to get here, if we don't change our thinking and we don't change our actions and we don't change our expectations, we're just going to get more of the same. And I see this year as an opportunity for us to be able to embrace the way that we connect with family and friends differently. It's our new normal. And so let's not be surprised with it. Let's utilize it. I think opportunities are coming. They always do. In the midst of struggle, opportunities become more clear because we begin to think differently. I think we're going to see more businesses come out of this pandemic. We're going to see people changing the way that they do business. And we're going to see some shifts. And then those shifts are opportunities. But I want to encourage people, let's stop griping about what we couldn't do. And let's focus more on the controllables. What can you control? And Ryan, I firmly believe there's 5 things I can control. I am a man of faith, so my faith is number 1. Number 2 is my attitude. Next is outlook. Then my responses and my attitude. My actions. Excuse me. So I've got my faith, my attitude, my outlook, my responses, and my actions. I can stay in control of those 5 things. I can do what Hogan needs done.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good because again, a lot of people are so focused on what is going wrong. I've thought about my life, and I'm almost 40 years old, and I think a lot of this just comes with experience and a level of maturity. And I was thinking about the time that I would have this afternoon with my kids. My youngest son, he's 4 years old. He came to me and he said, "Hey, Dad, will you help me build?" I don't know, something with Legos. I don't know what he's building, but he's like, "Hey, Dad, will you help me build that?" And this was just this morning before we got on the call, and I said, "Yeah, when I get done with our conversation I've got with Chris, and I've got to send a few emails, but after that, yeah, you got it. We'll go build it." And I feel like I'm in a very special place where I can be able to carve out time to be able to do that. But I know not everybody is in that situation. And I know there was a time in my life where it was like, "But I can't do that. I've got to work till 7 o'clock tonight, or I've got an appointment at 8 o'clock," as I was trying to build my financial planning practice. How do you make that change from, "Hey, I've got to be the sole provider and just like get a bunch of income and money coming in," to, I've got the freedom and flexibility, the money stuff's taken care of, the mortgage is paid, the cars are paid off.
Yeah.
How do you get to that point?
Boy, you know what? That's a $1 million question, to be honest. And I think it's this mindset of understanding when is enough, and virtually not getting caught in the rat race. I think is really important. Meaning, what are you chasing? And so I think, looking at this and understanding, we only have so much time with our kids. But that mindset, for me, the other side of it is learning to be present. And what I mean by that is that, obviously we all struggle with balance, right? And so you'll watch these ridiculous talks that tell you to be balanced and perfectly in all category. I'm like, okay, that's Narnia. When you find it, point me to it and I'll go
let me know where
closet.
It's at.
Yeah, I'll go through the closet with you and we can go visit this Narnia. But no, there's no such thing as balance. I think what you is you're present. What I mean by that is when I'm at work, I'm 100% at work. When I'm at home, when I'm with my boys, I'm 100% with them. So be 100% of where you are, right? But then also have that internal discipline to kind of go, "Hey, I do need to make sure I'm being intentional in time with my kids, or I do need to be intentional in time for self," right? Being able to read some things that you enjoy or watch some movie, And so it's one of those things of being present, I found has helped me stay more rooted than trying to be balanced.
What I've realized about presence too is it seems to me that it either diminishes or eliminates guilt. Because
Yes,
I know
sir.
in my life when, for example, I don't show up fully the way I need to show up at work. Then I punch out for the day at 5 or 6 o'clock or whatever it is. And I come home, and instead of being present and eating dinner as a family and being there and asking my kids about their day and laughing with them and telling jokes and stories, I'm up in here because I'm like, "Oh shit, I didn't call this client and I didn't do this thing and I could have done this better." And because I wasn't present, it bleeds over into my ability to be present in other more important facets of my life.
No, you're absolutely right. And you know what? It's okay. Like when you take that and you become aware of it, you're learning from it. Now what you want to do is work to be able to minimize that, right? Work to be able to shrink that down to where it's not happening all the time, but it becomes the anomaly. And so I think, we got to, what, Ryan, here's something we got to learn how to do for ourselves. We got to learn how to extend ourselves some grace. We got to learn how to just be able to breathe and acknowledge we're not perfect. We're going to make some mistakes. The key is don't keep making the same ones. Like, you keep making the same mistake over and over. We can't call it a mistake anymore. It's called a choice. And so what we got to do is give ourselves grace. And this is so important to me because you can't give it to yourself. You won't be able to extend it to someone else. And so I think us being able to forgive ourselves, give ourselves some grace, understand that this has been a year of challenge. We're all learning how to do some things better. People are more volatile right now, but coming off the election and all this tension and the COVID. And so being able to give ourselves some grace means we can extend it to others.
How do you strike the balance between affording yourself some grace and leaving room on the table? Like, I know I can do better and I don't happen to be doing it.
Well, I think the grace is a matter of you look and you go, who did it impact, right? Like one of my episodes coming up on my show, I'm talking about goal setting through a different lens. But it's a matter of, okay, well, who did it impact? Like if I didn't do something well, did that impact my kids? Did it impact someone in my family? Did it impact a business thing? What was that? And okay, what's the ranking? Like who's the priority in my life? And so I want to make sure those priorities get the majority of the attention. And so I want to make sure I'm intentional with that. And so, you know, self-assessment, self-awareness is big. All right, you got me going, buddy. So you got grace is imperative. Self-awareness is crucial. And self-awareness is understanding, hey, what is your tendency? Do you get home after work and it takes you an hour to wind down? Well, then I'm going to encourage you to change your day up a little bit. You need to do that wind down before you get home. Because when you step through the door, the kids don't need financial planner. They don't need author, speaker, and coach. They need dad. And so how do you begin to wind that down? And so for me, it was the process of what kind of music am I listening to? I love to laugh. Like I'm serious about progress, but I love to laugh. So for me, listening to some comedy on the way home helped me to kind of decompress and relax a little bit more. And so we know ourselves. I just think we have to begin to do the things we know we need to do for ourselves. And that might be some time alone. Or a buddy of mine, he's got small kids right now. And he and his wife, you know, they had twins. And so, you know,
for their first, they had twins. Dang.
Yeah, right out of the gate. So they got double drama, right? And so I told him, I said, hey, your wife could use an opportunity to be able to sleep in. Why don't you take the kids the first half of the morning? Like let her sleep in or go get coffee or do whatever she is. But you've got the kids from 7 to 10. I said, and then what you could do is you come back, you guys hang out together, and then maybe from noon to through 2 is your time. She's got the kids. And I said, so you guys will have this individual time, but you also have togetherness. He literally thanks me every other week for that. Every Saturday he'll text me. He goes, this is awesome. I get a chance to be with the kids. Without her, it's just me and them. And it's like she's excited because she gets to sleep in and finally rest up. You know, so it's just one of those things where I knew based on what I had done wrong, right? And so learning from that and being able to share that idea with others just gives us a chance to grow.
I remember I had a friend, his name is Travis, and we were growing our financial planning practices together, and we were partnering on some things, and he had his own business and I had my own business. And one day he came to me, and I can't remember how we got talking about it, but he would get home from work. We were talking about the same subject and being present with our family. He'd come home from work and he would park his car, he would get out of his car, and he would literally go to this tree in his front yard and he would hang on this tree. He would just grab a limb and he would just hang for as long as he could. He said it was usually like 30 seconds to a minute. Yeah. And he would just hang there. And I'm like, what? Why? And he's like, because to me, it signified hanging my troubles at the door. And so I hung the business at the door and I hung for a minute and then I walked in and all of that stuff was left out at the tree. And then when he would come out in the morning, he would go hang and he would put it all on and he would go to work and he would do that. And it seems silly, you know, if you're hearing that, it seems silly, but it worked for him and it was very powerful.
No, he established a routine that allowed him to be able to shift, right? Shift out of work mode into home mode or to shift from home mode to work mode. And that limb there, it became symbolic for him. And I think we can all do some things similar to that. Whether it's sitting still, whether it's a mindset, whether it's you telling yourself, you know, I mean, I think, again, it goes back to structure. And again, having a plan, right? You know, this is the phrase, you either have a plan or the plan will have you. Like someone else's plan will have you. So I love that story.
I think we get wrapped up a lot of the times in what we're supposed to do. So I take that story of your friend who's taken a couple of mornings a week and spending time with his family. And I think a lot of the times we're so wrapped up into what we're quote unquote supposed to do. Like the man goes in at 7 o'clock and he works from 7 to 5 or 6 o'clock. And then he comes home and he has dinner and he pats his kid on the head and he puts him to bed and then he does it all over again. And so we've constrained ourselves to these like supposed way of doing things that we don't allow ourselves the freedom and flexibility to do things differently that might create a dynamic in a situation that would be more advantageous for us and our families.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it's that being open, right? And also, you know what? Don't hesitate to ask for help. I know anxiety is high these days. I know a lot of people are stressed out, frustrated, irritated. So I want to encourage people out there, if you need some help, if you need somebody to talk to, find someone. Find someone to open up with. Whatever it is you're struggling with, you're not the only one. And I think in our Western society, we have this mindset of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, grin and bear it and get through it. You know what? Some stuff's not that easy. And I'd much rather people reach out, get some guidance, get some support that you need for the sake of yourself as well as your family.
How do you recommend somebody find, you say find somebody, and
Yeah.
that's not to diminish what you're saying, but that's a
Right.
very simplified, easy way to say it. Like, how do you actually do that?
I have asked people that I trust and gotten some great names. Like I work with coaches, I've got counselors, therapists that I talk with. I think so. Starting in your own circle of influence, or if that Google, Google's a beautiful thing. Just get on there
Yeah.
and start calling people and talking with them, or read up on their bios. Read on their website what kind of people are they working with and what do they specialize in. And so I'd say start with friends in that circle of network, and then from there just go research. Just reach out.
It's interesting because one of the things that a lot of guys ask me about is mentorship. And mentorship is interesting because I think what most men are looking for when they ask me that question is some sort of formalized contractual
Yeah.
arrangement.
Right.
And that's valuable. I'm not saying that's not valuable. It is. But I think there's a lot of mentorship that just comes from having a conversation with a friend at work,
I
or
completely agree.
reaching out to your dad or your father-in-law and saying, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. Like, did you deal with this? And I know if I called my father-in-law and I said, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, he'd be like, oh yeah, 20 years ago, yeah, me and your mother-in-law were doing the same thing, and here's what I did.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot
I
of
call that
indirect and-
situational mentorship, where you're just reaching out and getting some guidance on a question. It doesn't have to have some structure to it that you're meeting every third Wednesday of the second month
Right.
of the fourth year. No, but just reaching out and again, communicating with people that may have some experience that you can borrow from, I think is valuable.
Yeah. I want to pivot and shift gears. I'm going to go back to what you were talking about with the controllables. I think the fifth thing you said was actions. So as people think about their New Year's resolutions, obviously we're big on that right now. We've got 2 or 3 weeks before the new year. Men are thinking, okay, well, what specifically am I going to do? So from the context of finances, what would you say are some actionable steps that men can take to get them off on the right track as we move into 2021?
Well, some actionable steps they could take would be to sit down and really begin to, number one, have a dream date. If they're married, have a dream date with your spouse. Begin to think about and talk about together what it is you want to do, find out what she wants to do, and what's the dream you have for your kids if you have them. Are you paying for college? Are you wanting to buy their first home, or whatever it is? Just your dreams, get connected there. The next step is.
Can I
Go
stop
ahead.
you right there, Chris, on
Sure.
that one? So is that something that you would do like in an evening when the kids go to bed? Or is that something where it's like, hey, we're going to take a staycation. We're going to go get a hotel in a neighboring town or city for a couple of nights. Like what does
No.
that actually look like?
I think you kids would be just to be a matter of the kids going to bed. Like to me, I know this dream connection, it's going to start with a conversation, but it's going to grow into this a series. Like people are going to need time to really think and process, and they're going to really tap in because our dreams are so buried down deep in there that it can be harder to connect with them. So I hope it's an ongoing conversation that continues to get more details and structure to it as you go.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know in the past, my wife and I have taken some time prior to the new year where I've taken one piece of paper and I've said, okay, these are the things that I want to accomplish and these are things I want to do. And she's done the same. And then we will actually go away for a couple of days. We'll get a sitter. We'll drop the kids off with the folks.
That's great.
And man, it's an amazing, we've gotten away from it where we've moved and things like that, but that's something that I
Right.
need to incorporate. But I think this comes back to the formalized mentorship thing. We think that it needs to be like this elaborate process. And if it's not, then we don't do it because
That's right.
I think
Well-
it's interesting because a lot of people think that if it's simple, it's not effective, right? If it's easy, it's simple, it's not effective.
I agree. And unfortunately, you're right. A lot of people have that mindset. And so it just boils down to, hey, all I know is we live in the greatest country on the planet, right? I'm biased. It's the only country I've ever lived in. But I don't need a permission slip to try to get better. No one has to sign that for me like they did in elementary school to take the field trip. I know it's something I get to sign as an adult. And so I get to decide and try all within the same breath if I'm serious about it. So I would encourage people out there to really give some thought to what are you serious about? And then from there, why? What are you serious about accomplishing and why? Okay, then the next step is, and this is the one that is the game changer. Okay, here's two more. So think about what it is you want and why, and then who stands to benefit. Like who stands to benefit? Like for example, people tell me, Chris, I want to get more financially on a plan. Okay, great. So all right, so that's why? Well, for the sake of my family overall, or for the sake of the kids. Okay, I'll say, all right, that's good. And then the final phase is this: what are you willing to sacrifice? Like what are you willing to sacrifice to get it? And I give people the example of me working on my 2 books, Retire Inspired and Everyday Millionaires. If that was what I walked through that process of wanting to do, what I had to sacrifice was time with friends. I had to sacrifice TV. I had to sacrifice a lot of fun things for the sake of getting this project done. And so I think walking through that lens will help people set goals in a whole nother way.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times we don't have realistic expectations of what success will take.
I agree. I completely agree with you. And why is that?
I think it's just a hope that things will be easy. Yes. I don't know. I don't know. That's what I would go towards.
Well, I think if it's not easy, we tend to, first sign of any kind of reluctance or resistance, if you're not serious about it, you're going to stop.
Yeah.
Right. Like you just will. You'll go, oh, well, wasn't meant to be, or X, Y, and Z. But when you're serious about something, or people are dedicated to it, they go, oh, no, I'm going to go over, under, or through this thing, but I'm getting to that destination. And that, to me, is the mindset of people being connected to something they truly want, or something that really matters to them. So I'd say this: don't lie to yourself anymore setting goals. Please don't put down 42 goals just because it's a routine that you're used to doing, this ritual that you've committed to. No, I would love for you to put down 3 to 5 that you are serious about making happen, following through that lens that I was talking about, the why and who stands to benefit and what are you willing to give up, and really looking at this thing and going, no, I'm serious about this. In the first quarter, what are 3 to 5 things you're serious about accomplishing? We're not going to go the whole year because people, they get too big. Let's go quarterly. Let's walk it down. And then from there, what do you need to do over the next course of the months to keep you on track?
I like that. I frame a lot of things through the lens of sports because that's, my background, and that was a big part of my development as a man. And I remember, before the football season or before a game, we would spend 2 to 3 to 4 days, at least one night a week, where our coach would secure game film from the other team. And we would sit together as a team and we'd watch the game film, we'd watch tendencies, we'd watch strengths, and we'd watch weaknesses, and we would try to exploit and take advantage of those things. And I think everybody that's listening understands that concept, but I don't think we apply that in our life outside of sports where we're being realistic. Hey, these guys are pretty good at that. we ought to be prepared, or there's some vulnerabilities here that we can exploit. Let's take advantage of that. And I think that takes us being realistic about in our lives about our own strengths and weaknesses and playing to those strengths and avoiding those weaknesses. But that takes the study, that takes watching the game film, that takes the reflection that you're talking about right now.
It really does. And again, that self-awareness, and then the willingness to be able to ask for help for those areas where you're not strong, or to be able to ask for help in the areas that you are strong so you can get stronger. And so, it's all a matter of just choices. Like we can choose to get better or try to choose to stay the same. And one of my football coaches used to tell me all the time, he said, nothing's the same. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. Right. And so people oftentimes try to tell me, hey, I'm just trying to keep things the same. And I'm thinking, it doesn't do that. Like, why? If you're going to give the effort to get better. Right.
Right. Yeah. So let's say somebody's gone through this process. They've got a pretty good idea of where they want to go. They're improving themselves. They're on pace. I think sometimes we're always having a tendency of falling into ruts and patterns, specifically with money. Some of the patterns I think is exorbitant spending. I think spending is a habit that needs to be broken. I call it consumerism. I think getting in debt, I know a lot of people, for example, whether they will service debt. Let's say it's a $500 car payment, and then they pay off the car payment. And they're like, oh, cool, I have $500, and they'll go out and buy the 4-wheeler or the snowmobile.
Yeah,
So that's a
seriously.
habit that needs to
It
be
is.
broken because that's a pattern.
That's right.
How do you maintain your course of action well beyond and long beyond you being motivated or having these types of conversations with your spouse, that sort of thing?
I think it boils down to systems, meaning understanding I've got a system of working that's helped me get to goals, right? Whether it's writing books, producing videos, whatever it is, I've got a system. So I want to make sure that I've got a system in how I'm handling money. And so, I want to look at this, and I'm slower for larger ticket items. I'm extremely slow to pull the trigger on. Right. And so what I mean by that are things that are $5,000 and up. Like I need to study and research and do all the stuff. So I know me. Now, things that are $400 and below, I'll pull the trigger on in a heartbeat. And so now what I have to do is put a system in place, meaning how do I move faster on the things that I know that I want? And then how do I slow down on these other things that I might not even second guess? Right. And so knowing myself and going, all right, if it's this, I'm going to wait X amount of days because I don't want to have buyer's remorse. Right. That's where you buy something and you go, boy, I didn't need that. What in the world was I doing? And so I'm wanting to really understand the psychology behind it. Am I looking to buy because I'm bored? Am I looking to buy because I'm sad, lonely, celebratory, whatever it is? We're all different spenders. I tend to be a celebratory spender. So if something goes great, I like to celebrate by doing something, right? I want to do something. I want to commemorate it. Well, I know that about myself. Now, instead of it being a $400 item, it might be a $5 item or a $10 item. So I think the self-awareness allows us to put controls in place to help us in our overall systems.
Good point. I've never thought about it in this context, but as you're saying this, I'm thinking about myself. I'm not a celebratory spender. I'm a bored spender.
Okay.
I'm also a bored consumer of food. So if I'm bored, I'll just eat all the chips and salsa and all the ice cream. So for me, the answer is like, stop being bored. Go do something. Go work out, go move, go do Legos, go play with your kid, whatever your thing, just something. And then all of a sudden I'm not hungry anymore, or I don't have a desire to spend.
See, but you know you. And so what you did was you went through this and you went, wait a minute, right? Spending time, self-reflection is big, but then we got to do something about it. Like you said, don't be bored. And for me, it's like, yeah, I can celebrate without spending. And so it's just self-awareness that allows us to really see this and go, all right, I'm ready to get better. Right. I'm done with this. This is going to change. And this is what I'm going to do. And it always helps to get some people around you, some accountability partners that check in with you. Because if they're good, they're going to check in. And, you don't want to get that text or that phone call and have to say, well, I did X, Y, Z. So you want to get somebody that you trust, that you can be real with, and that will be thorough in their follow-up on you.
I've also found, and I need to put this out there, is that sometimes we give permission to for people to hold us accountable, and then we treat them like garbage.
Yeah.
And so you've said, hey, Chris, you can hold me accountable, and then you hold me accountable, and I blow up at you. It's like, how likely are you going to hold me accountable in the future?
That's exactly right. I have fired some accountability partners, and it's this fine line. As I tell people, listen, at the end of the day, the decision's up to you. I can call and check in, and I can text and check in. You could decide to tell me whatever you want to tell me, but I care enough about you to follow up. And so, that's the deal. I think that, again, finding that internal motivation is going to be much more important than some way of externally trying to motivate people.
Yeah. Now, when I ask this question, I'm not asking for investment advice, because I know you can't give specific investment advice because you don't know people's situations.
That's right.
Are there opportunities? Are there trends? Are there patterns? Are there things that we should be looking for when it comes to paying off debt and building wealth as we roll into 2021?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I've been consistent. When it comes to investing, I'm one of these guys. I'm a buy and hold. I love growth stock mutual funds and being able to be intentional over the long haul. As far as debt goes, anytime you can get that out of your life, to me, you're giving yourself a raise. I'm not into leverage debt schemes where you borrow from your house to invest and all of this. I know interest that you pay is a penalty. for a penalty for using someone else's money. So I want people to continue to work themselves to get out of debt. We use what's called the debt snowball. So it's the smallest to biggest approach. Has nothing to do with interest rate, just paying minimum payments on everything but the small one, throwing all extra money at it and moving down the line, so on and so forth. I think we've got to be prepared, Ryan. I think we're going to have more debt-type schemes marketed to us in 2021 that are looking to prey on the emotion of the COVID situation, that are looking to prey on the bored spender, the celebratory spender, the emotional spender. I think there are going to be more creative marketing plans centered around that. So we need not only to have a plan, but we need to have our guard up also. And so it's that process of playing offense and defense, to go with your sport analogy, because I really relate with that as well. It's really important to have both in place.
What's your take on good debt versus bad debt?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, the only tolerable debt in my mind is a mortgage, a 15-year fixed rate mortgage. Everything else in my mind, it's charging me an interest rate, so it's charging me a penalty. I don't believe it. I don't try to code it good or bad. I can tolerate a 15-year fixed rate mortgage. I want you to attack that thing and get out of your life. But anything moving forward, do it with cash. It doesn't bring risk. Like if you do something with cash, some buddy of mine wants to buy a rental home and he's got the cash, but he's like, Chris, I don't want to spend it. I could just go get a mortgage. And I go, you've got the money. You've set aside for this. I said, so what that tells me, if you don't want to spend the cash, you don't really want that property. You like the idea of the cash more than the property. I said, you're trying to talk yourself into buying that rental property. If you've got the cash, buddy, if I'm in your shoes, I'm stroking a check or I'm not doing anything at all. But once, you get out of debt, don't ever go backwards.
What would you say? So you say there's no risk, but what would you say about, for example, solvency risk?
Well, and that's where having the emergency fund is crucial. And so I tell people 3 to 6 months in your emergency fund. And if, that's the case. But looking at this and going, yeah, in 6 months, I mean, you're going to tell me you got a career or a job, you can find money within 6 months. You can get a job. It might not be the job, but you want to have something that's a cushion between it. And so some people, again, and having $200,000 just sitting in the bank account, for me, that money's just sitting. He likes cash at home too. I go, but that money's in a hammock. Let's put it to work. Get it invested to grow for you.
Right. I mean, and let's be real though, $200,000. What's the likelihood that you're going to have some sort of catastrophic event where could you need 20? Sure. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you need to buy a new vehicle or something.
Right.
$200,000, probably not going to need $200,000.
That's right. So he was coming up with, and that's the amount he agreed. He goes, yeah, I'm going to keep that in cash at my house. And he goes, this other dollar amount, his emergency fund, I said, just put that in a money market account. Just let it sit there and be liquid. It's not an investment, it's insurance. I said, but this other chunk of money needs to be doing something for you. Like, let's put that money to work.
What's your take? This is a hot issue right now, just with presidential election and different ideologies on how we view this. But what's your take on incurring student loan debt in order to secure higher education?
Yeah, you know what, Ryan, I have seen the result of people having this student loan debt. And as we sit at this $1.7 trillion issue with student loan debt, I think the model is jacked up. I think the higher education is a good thing. I've got a few degrees myself, but the process by which we've had people go about it in this normalized way has straddled them with more debt than they ever imagined. On average, an average person has $37,000 in student loan debt. So we've got young people walking into financial aid offices, signing documents they don't understand for payments they can't afford. The model's broken. And so I think the way around this is for us to educate young people to help them understand there's a way for them to achieve higher education without all the threat of the debt. So that's utilizing community colleges. We got kids that are paying for 4-year private universities that are taking classes online right now. Right. And so I'm going, you're paying $5,000 a class to do it online. You could knock that out at a community college for $400. So I think we've just got to educate young people. One of my good friends here, Anthony O'Neill, has a book called Debt Free Degree, which shows young people how they can go to school debt free. I'll make sure I send you a copy of that. But
Yeah.
we just have to educate these young people, or not so young people, as I'm hearing from people that want to pursue a master's degree, right? I'm like, okay, well, what's it going to bring you? Like, what's it providing? Is it a step in your career? Is it an income jump? You know, you don't want to do it just to do it. It needs to be leading towards something.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who have never done this quote unquote cost benefit analysis.
Yes. Yes.
They're just told, hey, you just go to, that's what you do. You just go to college. Okay.
And unfortunately, it's treated
Why?
it's treated like the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th year of high school, right?
Yes.
Like you don't want to just go do it because it's the logical next thing to do. You want to do it does it lead you somewhere. And I'm telling you, we're having more trades become areas of more of prominence. Those are growing. For become a welder, an electrician, a plumber. And so I think young people, we need to help them understand the economics. And again, you got some older people, adults that don't understand that choice in the course of debt. So let's not, and what gets me most upset is that I'm hearing about a lot of grandparents that are signing on for these Parent Plus loans and co-signing for college. And if these young people default on that debt, they're now putting their grandparents' Social Security at risk, because now they can come in and pull from it. So it's heartbreaking all the way around. I hope we're able to educate more young people to make better decisions. I'd much rather someone go to school at night while working and it take them 6 years to graduate. But if they graduate without student loan debt, they're starting out ahead of the game.
Well, and not only that, they also have 4 to 6 years of applicable experience towards the profession.
No, you're absolutely right. So I think it's an area we continue to address here and just helping to try to educate people as much as possible.
Yeah, man, there's so much to talk about. I don't want to take up all of your day because we certainly could. Man, you've just got so much great information. You've got thousands and thousands of hours of conversations like this. You've got multiple books. Of course, I want to direct the guys over to that. But I do want to be respectful of your time and just let you know, man, I really appreciate your energy and your enthusiasm, and it's infectious. We're talking about dollars and money and look, I'm going to be really frank with you. I got a little burned out on the financial planning process. I found value in it. I knew what I was doing was important, but I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And to see somebody like you who is just as passionate about finances as I am about what I'm doing is very cool to see. I love it. It's
fun, man. Well, I appreciate your energy, your spirit. It's always good to be on with you, and I look forward to having another conversation soon.
We will. Let the guys know where to connect with you. Obviously, you've got events are kind of on the back burner, but you've got a lot of content, and I want to direct the guys to the right places.
Sure. Well, listen, they can learn more about me and both books, Retire Inspired and Everyday Millionaires. Go to my website, chrishogan360.com. That's chrishogan360.com, and you can learn more about it. But we also, for the people that are serious about making 2021 the best financial year ever, we've got something cool going on with Ramsey Plus. It's our all access kind of membership where we've got a 2-week free trial going on where you get an opportunity to come in and not only get the information to change your life financially, to get the tools to be able to track it, but there's also videos taught by Dave Ramsey, Rachel Cruz, and myself. So you could sit down with your spouse or accountability partner and watch this information as well as join community. So you can learn more about this by going to daveramsey.com/Ramsey Plus. Again, that's daveramsey.com/Ramsey Plus. 2-week free trial. Get in there and sign up and tell them Hogan sent you.
Awesome. We'll sync it up. I know Total Money Makeover obviously was a huge success. And so to see you guys create, because our model is built on a membership program. It's called the Iron Council. And so it's very, very valuable for the guys. There is tremendous value in being part of a community and having the membership and having the ongoing consultation.
That's right.
What you guys are doing is incredible. I love it.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for having me, buddy. I wish you well and have a fantastic Christmas.
Thanks, Chris. You too.
Take care.